Nebraska's offseason is in full swing, but with that being said, it's never too early to look at the Huskers 2025 schedule. So in today's video, I'm going to make my official way too early Nebraska 2025 record prediction. We're going to go over the entire schedule, see who the Huskers play, when they play them, and overall, I'm going to answer the question: how many wins do the Big Red get? So really quick, fun record prediction looking over 2025. Hit that like button if you're fired up. Also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're unsubscribed, what are you waiting for? I post daily Husker football content, recruiting updates, breaking news that you're going to get nowhere else on Husker YouTube. So please join the best family here on this platform and hit that subscribe button. You'll be thanking yourself that you did. But without further ado, let's get into it. Going into my way too early Nebraska 2025 record prediction. Listen, a lot of things can change from now to August. There's still a lot of player movement, coaching movement. So the predictions that I'm about to make are not final. They're subject to change. But the purpose of this video is to take a sneak peek at who we play and to just put some thoughts out there on this easy schedule for the Huskers. I think this could be the year that Nebraska really makes a name for themselves, breaks out. We'll get into that. So I want to get things started just looking over our schedule, right? Who do we play? When do we play them? You start off your season: Cincinnati, Akron, Houston Christian. Michigan, Michigan State, Maryland are your three first Big Ten games, and then you have Minnesota, Northwestern, USC, UCLA, and then your last two, Penn State and Iowa. Now, this has been named one of the easiest Power Four schedules in the country going into 2025. The reason it's one of the easiest is because Nebraska only plays 5 bowl-eligible teams from last year. 7 of our opponents had a losing record, did not make a bowl game. And really, when you look at the teams that did make a bowl game, they aren't very good. The best team you play is Penn State. You duck Oregon, you duck Indiana, you duck Ohio State. So honestly, this is a pretty, dare I say, easy schedule for Nebraska, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself because Nebraska loses to easy opponents all the time. Hopefully we can change that this year. So I don't want to say easy because Nebraska loses to easy teams. They lose to teams they shouldn't. But objectively, it is an easy schedule. Let's get things started with my predictions. Nebraska gets things going against Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium at a neutral site game Thursday, August 28th. Now, listen, Cincinnati is actually a better team than some people give them credit for. They did miss a bowl game this year. They went 5-7, but they beat Arizona State, a team that ended up going to the College Football Playoff. They gave Colorado a run for their money, Iowa State a run for their money. You know, they were honestly a pretty competitive team. They're not the Cincinnati of old, but they're still pretty darn okay. And I think they're going to be a lot better in 2025. They're bringing them some quality transfer additions. They had a decent recruiting class. So Cincinnati, I think, will be improved. It also makes me frustrated that Nebraska is starting off their season with yet another Power 4 opponent. This is the 5th time in the last 6 years Nebraska starts off with a Power 4 team. Personally, I would much rather get a cupcake, get the early mistakes out, and then you can play a team week 2, week 3. But Nebraska, unfortunately, plays another Power 4 team. You're lucky that you play a team that really isn't that great in Cincinnati, and it's a neutral site game, but it's going to be 95% Husker fans there. I think the Huskers get it done. No, I'm not going to go over my score prediction just yet, but Nebraska gets it done versus Cincinnati. I think the Huskers are just overall the better team in this one, and it's going to be 95% Husker fans, so they're going to be playing with something. Patrick Mahomes 2.0 and Dylan Raiola at Patrick Mahomes Stadium. I don't know. I think he might have a good game. We have all offseason to talk about it. So Huskers start off 1-0. Then you go home for your first real home game against Akron. Listen, Akron was not very good this year. I watch a lot of MAC football. They're not getting better anytime quick. We're not on upset watch here in Nebraska. 2-0. Then you play Houston Christian at home. One of the worst FCS teams, period. Yeah, this is going to be a win, 3-0 for the Huskers. So the Huskers start off 3-0, just like they did in 2024. Feels good. There's a lot of hype around the program. And then Michigan comes to town. You faced off against the Michigan Wolverines at home Saturday, September 20th. This is going to be a big-time game. It's going to be a 5-star quarterback battle. Bryce Underwood, who is the #1 overall recruit in the country, will come into Lincoln. He will probably start for them. And he'll take on Dylan Raiola. Listen, Michigan did struggle this year, but they got better as the year progressed. They ended their season on a high note, beating Ohio State, who is now in the national championship game, and then they beat Alabama pretty soundly in a bowl game. I think Michigan's going to be a lot better Sharon Moore is just learning how to be a head coach, his first opportunity. I think they're probably going to be a 9-10 win team next year. Probably not in contention for the College Football Playoff, but they're going to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten. Unfortunately, I mean, there's going to be a lot of hype going into this game for Nebraska. Can Nebraska finally get this big win? It's probably going to be on national television, big noon, or it might be, NBC night broadcast. It is going to be a very hyped up ball game. Can Matt Rhule and Dylan Raiola finally get the monkey off their back and get a big win? I just don't think it happens here. I just don't. I think Michigan is going to be the team that seasons more. They've played in more of these big games. They've won more of these big games. Nebraska has to wait to get a big win. The Huskers fall to 3-1. The Huskers now have a bye week. They licked their wounds a little bit. It is what it is. You're 3-1. That's still a good record. Kind of in a similar spot to where you were last year. Of course, 3-1, losing to Illinois. Now you play once again at home against Michigan State. So Michigan State, second-year coach and Jonathan Smith. They struggled this year. They did not make a bowl game. Nebraska's done pretty well against Michigan State in the last decade. Even when Michigan State was good, back in the mid 2010s, early 2010s, Nebraska had their number. Now, the last time Nebraska played Michigan State, they lost in horrendous fashion on the road. I think that does change this year. Nebraska is going to be a lot better than what they were in 2024. They're going to be mad about losing to Michigan. They're going to take it out of Michigan State in front of the home crowd, and they're going to go to 4-1. All right, now we go off on a road trip over to Maryland, a team that is not on an upward trajectory. Mike Locksley, he's had some good times over there at Maryland. But once again, they missed a bowl game. They really struggled last year. They don't have a good quarterback anymore. They don't have the elite wide receivers that they used to have in the Mike Locksley era. It does concern me you're on the road. I never like when Nebraska goes off to another coast to play. In this case, you're going off to the East Coast to play in Maryland. But Maryland, again, this is not a team that's very good. They haven't impressed me in the transfer portal at all. I'm going to go ahead and pencil this in for a W as well. Now, again, it's tough for me to pencil in all these W's. Knowing Nebraska, they lose games they shouldn't lose to. We'll get into that. But I think this is a better Husker team. Matt Rhule, this is the big breakout year, supposedly. Hopefully he lives up to that. All right, let's go into the Minnesota game. Now you play Minnesota. And this is kind of a October game. October 18th. It's going to be a little bit colder there. Minnesota's had our number. They've won the last 5 games. We, for whatever reason, really struggle in Minneapolis. I think that stays the same once again. There's always going to be one game Nebraska loses that they have no business losing. In my opinion, this is going to be that game for the Huskers. You just really struggle against Minnesota. They're constantly kind of like a little bit of worse version of Iowa. I would like this game if Nebraska played it at home. We can't win in Minneapolis. I don't know why. We're cursed. We're cursed. We haven't beat this team since 2018. So I think that stays the same, unfortunately, against Minnesota. There's always going to be one game that we lose that we shouldn't. I don't like this on the road. Nebraska falls to 5-2. Now Husker fans are freaking out. They're saying, oh my gosh, the Huskers are going to go on another big losing streak. We're not going to make a bowl game. We're going to be right around 6 wins. But then you kind of have a layup game with Northwestern at home. Listen, Northwestern, I don't even want to call them a layup because they're the most unpredictable team of all time. When you're not expecting them to do good, they'll rattle off 8-9 wins. When you're expecting them to get hyped up, they'll not make a bowl game. Last year, it was a ladder. They didn't make a bowl game. People were expecting big things of them after they made a bowl in 23. I think they're going to be better. I think they're going to be competitive. But with that being said, you play that at home. I got to give this to Nebraska. And again, this is one of those games where Scott Frost would lose this game. Matt Rhule in year 1 would lose this game. Mike Riley absolutely would lose this game. I just have to believe this is different this year. When you look at the talent, when you look at the big year 3 jump that's supposedly going to happen, I think we take care of business against Northwestern. So the Huskers clinch bowl eligibility with 6-2 with 4 games left. You play USC this year at home, not on the road, but at home against a very, very competitive USC team. Listen, they went through tough times over the last couple years. Lincoln Riley, I think it's a sinking ship a little bit. They don't have a great quarterback. It's probably going to be the same guy that played against Nebraska this year. They lost Zach Branch. They lost Zion Branch. They lost Deuce Robinson. They were not great this year. They were pretty middle of the road, and yet they still beat Nebraska. I think they do it once again, unfortunately. And this is just a talented team. They're not as good as they used to be under Lincoln Riley, but they're talented. And once again, Nebraska always drops games they shouldn't drop. And unless I am proven otherwise, I'm going to continue to predict that Nebraska loses games they probably shouldn't lose. So I think we lose to USC at home. Then we go over to Pasadena, California, to the Rose Bowl to take on UCLA. UCLA was a game that I predicted correctly this offseason. I said all offseason that Nebraska was going to drop UCLA. That was a game that I really didn't like for the Huskers. It was a little bit of a trap game. and we did lose. However, I'm going to pound the table. This is going to be a big win for Nebraska in Pasadena, California, on the road. We're going to get this done against the Bruins, and we're going to move on to 7-3. 2 more games left. We have a bye week going into these last 2 games, and we play a pretty good foe here, the Penn State Nittany Lions. Listen, I would maybe feel some sort of way if we played them at home. Penn State, they made the College Football Playoff this year. They were one of the 4 best teams in college football. They have Rhule coming back. They have some question marks. They lose Abdul Carter, their best edge rusher. They lose some of their players in the secondary. They lose probably both of their 2 stud running backs in Katron Allen, Nick Shingleton. But with that being said, I mean, they're still a very, very good program. They're miles above where we are. And you just can't go into Happy Valley and expect to win there, especially when it's going to be so cold. I have Nebraska falling to 7-4. 1 more game on the schedule. You know who it is. Black Friday, the Iowa Hawkeyes. Listen, Iowa's a tough team. They've had our number. They've beat us, every single year in the last decade except for 1. That came in 2022. I like that this game is at home for Nebraska. We should have won last year. We should have won all these years. We're going to be a better team. And we feel like we should be better than the record says right here. And we're going to get it done. We're going to move to 8-4 on the year. And that is going to be my early prediction for Nebraska, 8-4. Not super crazy, right? I'm not going to go out here predict 10 wins, at least not yet. A lot of things can change. It's an easy schedule for Nebraska. I don't want to predict 10 wins because we've been hurt before as Husker fans. We've been hurt before. We know how it is. We lose games that we shouldn't lose. We go into the year, we're super hyped up, and we don't live up to it. 8 wins is still a very good year. Obviously, again, this is not my official prediction, right? This is January. I'm releasing this on January 11th. So a lot can change. I'll save my real record prediction until what? Well, I'll post that in August of next year. I'll post that in 6 months. But this is an early look at our schedule. 8 wins. Let me know down below your thoughts about next year for the Huskers. What's your way too early prediction? I absolutely want to hear what you have to say. Let me know in the comment section. Hey, if you made this far in the video, shout out to you. Hit that like button and subscribe. Best family here on Husker YouTube. So appreciative of all you guys. As always, folks, go Big Red. Go my Rhule. See you in the next one.